an important election year. And to help inform you about voting, the candidates, and issues on the ballot, the WMNF News team has partnered with 10 other public media organizations around the state to create a 2024 Florida Voter Guide.
You can find it on our website at wmnf.org/vote. It has information about all the candidates for U.S. Senate, U.S. House, Florida Senate, and Florida House.
Candidates provide their positions on issues ranging from the cost of insurance to the environment to how they'll vote on the proposed constitutional amendments. You will also find a tool to help locate the district you vote in, as well as how to register to vote and how to find your polling location.
Tell a friend about WMNF.org/vote. It has information about candidates and issues in the 2024 elections in Florida.
You are tuned to WMNF Radio 88.5 FM. This is the public affairs program called Community Speaks, and I'm your host, Patro Mobili. We are in general election season for 2024, but it is clear that primary elections also have consequences. Turnout in the Florida primary was considered low this year, but the governor's attempt to stack the school boards and his zeal to wage culture wars from kindergarten to the university took a hit. His Moms for Liberty puppets lost big, and only 6 of them will face a general election challenge. And in the Hillsborough prosecutor's office race, Andrew Warren won his primary and will face Susie Lopez, the installed prosecutor, in November. And U.S. Senator Rick Scott, a Republican, is once again casting doubt on the integrity of the U.S. elections. And why does that matter? Scott has a long history of election denialism. And as some polls show, his race against Democrat Debbie Murkacel Powell is heating up. And now, so are his claims of widespread fraud. You are tuned to Community Speaks, and of course this is an opportunity to talk to you, but you can see full 2024 election coverage on our website at WMNF.org. You can write me also at dj@WMNF.org. Meanwhile, the presidential race is also heating up, but as the Kamala momentum continues, we will listen to highlights from the Democratic National Convention last week, because we heard fellow citizens defining the 45th president in hilarious terms, but also in somber terms. And the most important speakers, in my opinion, were exonerated members of the Central Park Five. Dr. Yusef Salaam, who is now a New York City councilman, and activist Korey Wise, but also members of the exonerated Five, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson. They also address the DNC in Chicago and recall how 45 called for their execution, something he has yet to retract or apologize for. So, you have to wonder why this man is still running, still in the race, has support, and but it looks like the momentum is something that's hard for them to overcome. But let's start out listening to what the exonerated Five said to the Democrats at their convention last week here on Community Speaks.
Good evening, people. My name is Korey Wise. 35 years ago, my friends and I were in prison for a crime we did not commit. Our youth was stolen from us. Every day as we walked into courtroom, people screamed at us, threatened us because of Donald Trump. He spent $85,000 on a full-page ad in the New York Times, calling for our execution. We were innocent kids, but we served a total of 41 years in prison. Reverend Al Sharpton stood with us. Now, I'm proud to stand with him today. Vice President Kamala Harris has also worked to make things fairer. I know she will do the same as president. Now approve that message.
I love these guys. These are my brothers. These are my brothers. Yes, indeed. America. I am Yusef Salaam. A New York City councilman representing my hometown of Harlem. That's right. Man. Representing my hometown of Harlem, USA. And listen, as my friend Korey Wise just said, 45 wanted us unalive. He wanted us dead. Today we are exonerated because the actual perpetrator confessed and DNA proved it. That guy says he still stands by the original guilty verdict. He dismisses the scientific evidence rather than admit he was wrong. He has never changed, and he never will. That man thinks that hate is the animating force in America. It is not. We have the constitutional right to vote. In fact, it is a human right. So let us use it. I want you to walk with us. I want you to march with us. I want you to vote with us. And together, and let me tell you, this is going to be so beautiful. And together, on November 5th, we will usher in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz into the White House. So I want to do this. When I say one day, I want you to say, see us. One day, see us. One day, see us. When they see us, America will finally say goodbye to that hateful man. We will say what I have said after 7 long years of wrongful incarceration. Free at last. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
That was the voice of Yusef Salaam, who is now a Harlem City Councilman, one of the exonerated 5 who 45 took out a full-page ad to have executed because he did not want and still does not want to buy into the scientific evidence that the real perpetrator confessed. So that's how he really feels about black men. That's how he really feels about people he doesn't like. So, you know, we have to question our own sanity and our own value system when we waste our vote on such a person. So we got to listen to some more highlights here on Community Speaks. You are tuned to 88.5. My name is Patrick Mobili, the host for Community Speaks. You can also hear from you as well. Irene stands ready to take your telephone calls, 813-239-9663. And you can also write me, DJ, at WMNF.org. But we're going to listen to some more highlights here because today is the day in 1920 that this country certified the voting rights for women, and or rather, they amended the Constitution so you cannot deny someone the vote based on sex. It was certified on this day, and of course, black women had a problem also accessing the vote, especially in the South during the Jim Crow era. So we're celebrating the possibility of this country electing its first black female president in the United States. And they were celebrating all last week, and it looks like there are people who are suggesting that because of this historic occasion, she's having it both ways. She's an incumbent and an underdog. So let's listen to how this momentum has continued. Was building last week at the convention with some of the standout lines, and we'll listen to some more speeches because there was a lot said. It gave Americans a chance to exhale from the past.
Kamala Harris has a resume. Donald Trump has a rap sheet. She presides over the Senate while he keeps our national secrets next to his thinking chair. Y'all know what I said that other time.
Jasmine Crockett.
Well, Donald Trump wants to put our 1787 Constitution through his Project 2025 paper shredder and make every day January 6th. Kamala Harris is fighting to fulfill the promise of America. In the real world, this wouldn't even be close. But this election is. Don't make a mistake. We are the underdogs in this fight. Even though there is only one person qualified, only one person who's done the work, and who has delivered the results. And she needs you. She needs your one vote this November. Can we count on you?
Ever since I got elected, Republicans have attacked me
AOC.
by saying that I should go back to bartending. But let me tell you, I'm happy to any day of the week because there is nothing wrong with working for a living.
Here on Community Speaks, we're going to listen to some more of those highlights, but let's listen to what Hakeem Jeffries had to say at the convention last week here on Community Speaks. Keep it tuned. We're just taking a listen back because the momentum is so high, and this is a momentous day in history as the certification of the women's right to vote is being celebrated on today.
Together here tonight, the people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day. Now, from a neighbor, that's exhausting. From a president, it's just dangerous. The truth is, Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than it means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his rich friends. He killed a bipartisan immigration deal written in part by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress that would have helped secure our southern border because he thought trying to actually solve the problem would hurt his campaign. He doesn't. Do not boo. Vote. He doesn't seem to care if more women lose their reproductive freedom since it won't affect his life. And most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them. Between the real Americans, who of course support him, and the outsiders who don't. And he wants you to think that you'll be richer and safer if you will just give him the power to put those other people back in their place. It is one of the oldest tricks in politics from a guy whose act has, let's face it, gotten pretty stale. We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
That was the voice of Barack Obama, of course, the 44th president of the United States, and saying that Trump has not stopped whining and is probably working that Kamala's campaign has ignored a lot of the attempts to trash her and define her from the Trump campaign. So ignoring it obviously is working. The momentum is still rising, and the historic nature of the contest is still very, very real in the minds of people. But let's listen to Hakeem Jeffries finally as he delivered some remarks at the convention, because the idea is to come alive November 5. So let's go listen to more of that. And of course, Michelle Obama gave a searing speech as well. We'll listen to that. But here's Hakeem Jeffries, the Speaker of the Minority Leader of the House right now.
Good evening, Democrats. It's a high honor and a distinct privilege as a Brooklynite, New Yorker, and as an American to stand before you today and unequivocally express my support for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be the next president and vice president of the United States of America. Over the last few years, House Democrats have been hard at work, and we could not have asked for a better leader to partner with than President Joseph Robinette Biden, who will go down as one of the most consequential presidents of all time. Last month, President Biden selflessly passed the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris, who is ready, willing, and able to fight for the people. Kamala Harris is a courageous leader, a compassionate leader, and a common sense leader who will deliver real results for everyday Americans. Kamala Harris is fighting for our freedom. Kamala Harris is fighting for our families. Kamala Harris is fighting for our future. Together, let's make Kamala Harris the 47th President of the United States of America. In our great country, when you work hard and play by the rules, you deserve to earn a living wage. You deserve to have an affordable place to call home. You deserve to educate your children in a great public school that is free from gun violence. And you deserve high quality, affordable health care, and you deserve the chance to one day retire with grace and with dignity. But for far too many people in our great country, they are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. And as a result, the American dream is out of reach. Here's the thing. Extreme MAGA Republicans don't care about everyday Americans. They only care about themselves. Our approach, led by Kamala Harris and Coach Walz, is very different. We care about you, the American people. And we will fight hard to make sure that the American dream is alive and well in every single community. Now, the road ahead will not be easy, which brings me to you-know-who. Donald Trump is like an old boyfriend who you broke up with, but he just won't go away. He has spent the last 4 years spinning the block, trying to get back into a relationship with the American people. Bro, we broke up with you for a reason. Trump was the mastermind of the GOP tax scam, where 83% of the benefits went to the wealthiest 1% in America. Trump failed our country during the COVID-19 pandemic. Trump is a chaos agent who is focused on himself, not the American people. Trump tried to destroy our democracy by lying about the election and inciting a violent mob to attack the Capitol. Trump put 3 extreme justices on the Supreme Court who destroyed Roe v. Wade. We broke up with you for a reason. Donald Trump can spin the block all he wants, but there's no reason for us to ever get back together. Been there, done that. We're not going back. Kamala Harris and House Democrats will always put people over politics. Kamala Harris and House Democrats will lower costs and grow the middle class. Kamala Harris and House Democrats will fix our broken immigration system and secure the border. Kamala Harris and House Democrats will strengthen the relationship between the police and the community. Kamala Harris and House Democrats will continue to combat the climate crisis with the fierce urgency of now. Kamala Harris and House Democrats will protect Social Security, protect Medicare, protect Medicaid, protect the Affordable Care Act, protect working families, protect small businesses, protect the middle class, protect free enterprise, protect our children, protect our seniors, protect our veterans, protect our unions, protect our dreamers, and always protect a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions.
Kamala Harris is tough. Kamala Harris is experienced.
You are listening to highlights. That was Hakeem Jeffries speaking at the convention last week, and we'll get back to more of those comments as well because he had a flourish in the end. But we're going to take your telephone calls. 813-239-9663 is the number to call if you want to speak about what you've heard. But we've been listening to highlights from the Democratic National Convention as we consider the ballot for 2024. Kamala Harris is certainly at the top of the ticket after Joe Biden pulled out a month ago, and is the sitting vice president who has been in office for 3.5 years. She's the presidential candidate of just 5 weeks, promising a new way forward. And Kamala Harris is having it both ways in a lot of people's minds as she hits the campaign trail after the Democratic National Convention, and she takes credit for parts of President Joe Biden's record while casting herself as a new leader who rails against the politics of the past. And so Harris so far appears to be successfully harmonizing two competing messages, much to the frustration of former President Donald Trump and his allies. What say you? 813-239-9663 is the number to call if you want to have a comment here on Community Speaks. Go ahead, Ann from St. Pete.
Good morning, Mobili. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Well, first, good morning. I want to thank you for playing the speeches of the exonerated 5. Excuse me. I know I followed that over the years, and I'm so glad that they are free, and to know that the one young man is now in city government. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I also wanted to tell you that, right here in our own backyard, the federal government is trying to perpetrate another miscarriage of justice by falsely accusing the who is free of being pawns of Russia for speaking out for reparations to African people. And I wanted to let people know that they'll be on trial September 3rd at the federal courthouse all through September. And this is going to impact all of our, the outcome will impact all of our freedom of speech. So if people are interested in learning more, they can go to handsoffwho.org, and they can also come out to the rally against the U.S. government's attempt to stop the movement of African liberation and anti-colonial free speech. It's at the Uhura House in St. Pete, August 31st, this Saturday, 11 to 2. And the chairman, O'Malley Chattel, will be speaking. Jill Stein will be there. Dr. Cornel West, or a representative of his, Charles Barron. There's like 150 organizations who know how important this is. So I wondered if you had heard about this.
Certainly. And we'll be watching the trial and looking out for the outcome for that. So, yeah, I've heard of it, and we're definitely interested in that.
Oh, wonderful. I hope maybe you'll consider to interview one of the who is free or their attorneys prior to the trial. And also during the trial, the members of the campaign will be available to come on and give updates if people are interested.
All right. Before the trial, that'd be interesting. Thank you, Ann.
All right. I'll send you information of how to set that up.
All right. Do so.
Thank you very much, Mabili. I appreciate being able to put that out.
Thank you for calling. 813-239-9663. That is a free speech case. I'm not exactly sure if it is being tried as a free speech case, but it is certainly being defended as such. Back to some of the comments from Hakeem Jeffries. I also want to hear from Maryland Governor Wes Moore, but let's take some more listening to these speeches. Hakeem Jeffries.
There are only 76 days left We must continue to speak up. We must continue to show up. We must continue to stand up, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans. And when we do, nothing can stop Kamala Harris from becoming the 47th President of the United States of America. Nothing can stop House Democrats from taking back the majority. Nothing can stop the American people from continuing our march toward a more perfect union. Nothing can stop us. We're all the way up. God bless you. God bless Kamala Harris. May God bless the United States of America.
Thank you. Thank you. On March 26th, at 1:30 in the morning, a container ship, the length of 3 football fields, slammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore.
Governor
and the
Westmore.
bridge collapsed. A port that drives 13% of our state's economy was now closed. Thousands of workers were hours away from waking up and realizing they no longer had a job. 6 Marylanders who had been on the bridge in the middle of the night fixing potholes lost their lives. And one of the first phone calls that I got that morning started with these 3 words. Gov, it's Kamala. She said, I know you spoke to the president, and I want you to know we are here with you every step of the way. Now, I joined the Army when I was 17. In fact, I was too young to sign the paperwork. I had to ask my mom to sign the paperwork for me because I don't have bone spurs. I led soldiers in combat in Afghanistan. And my training taught me that you never learn anything about anybody when times are easy. You learn everything you need to know about somebody when times are hard and when the temperature gets turned up. And America, I saw that Kamala Harris is the right one to lead in this moment firsthand. And united with the Almighty God's grace, we brought closure to the families of the 6 victims. And while many said it could take 11 months to reopen the port of Baltimore, we got it done in 11 weeks. Because that is the story of America. We are a nation of patriots who serve when the mission is hard and who serve when the destination is uncertain. And I know our history isn't perfect. The unevenness of the American journey has made some skeptical. But I'm not asking you to give up your skepticism. I just want that skepticism to be your companion and not your captor. And I'm asking that you join us in the work. Because making America great doesn't mean telling people you're not wanted. And loving your country does not mean lying about its history. Making America great means saying the ambitions of this country would be incomplete without your help. It's the legacy of those 6 workers who fixed potholes on a bridge while we slept. who were born in a different country, but who knew that America was big enough for them too. It's the journey. It's the journey of a man raised by a remarkable immigrant single mom, a man who felt handcuffs on his wrists at 11 years old, who now stands before you as the 63rd governor of Maryland and the first black governor in the history of our state. It's the story of a prosecutor who defended our freedoms and had Maryland's back when we needed it most. And now, MVP, we've got your back as well. That's right. It's my fellow veteran, my brother, and the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz. And now, Tim knows that in the military, you count the days towards mission completion. So guess what, y'all? We have got 75 days and a wake up until Election Day. 75 days in a wake-up for us to prove what Americans can do when the pressure is on. 75 days in a wake-up for us to show that true patriots do not whine and complain. We put our heads down and we get to work. 75 days.
So it's that was the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. And, of course, there's a few less days than that now as the campaign for president is heating up. And, of course, that was at the Democratic National Convention where there was some protest over ceasefire in the Middle East, getting Israel to stop its bombardment of Gaza. Over 40,000 feared dead now as a result of that, but still hostages not freed. We are taking a look at some of the issues there as well, because historically, economic crisis often brings an end to a lot of belligerence. And we see there's a widening of the conflict with Hezbollah getting bombed and sending some missiles Israel's way. But both economies are struggling. And so a lot of that, there was some pullback when there was this latest round of bombardment, but they pulled back this morning because, I think at the end of the day, this war is just expensive. Its economy is battered in Lebanon. So the question is, can it afford a war with Israel? This ferocious exchange of fire by Hezbollah and Israel in Israel is raising fears of a regional war, but I just think that economic issues will come to play here soon. But protesters were calling for the United States to stop sending arms to Israel. So a lot of that weapons is defensive, to block missiles that are coming in, and with all of the ferocious fire that's happening now, is fears of widening. But it's going to be interesting to watch economic issues come to bear. We're seeing that even in Israel itself, Israel's economy is struggling. And economists are saying ending the war would help. So Israel has even more of a reason to end it. But of course, right-wing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said the economic damage is only temporary. So he's going to continue to look for ways to fight. But the bloodiest, most destructive war ever between Israel and Hamas has hurt thousands of small businesses and compromised international trust in an economy once thought of as an entrepreneurial dynamo in Israel. Some leading economists say a ceasefire is the best way to stop the damage. The war has inflicted a far heavier toll on Gaza's already broken economy. So you'll probably be hearing more economic issues coming to bear in the conflict in the Middle East. Listening to a lot of the speeches last week, is gratifying to me to hear dynamic speeches, because that's just something we don't hear much of lately in this country. And so we're hearing them today here on Community Speaks, but we can also hear from you at 813-239-9663. You can call me and we'll take your comments on the air. You could write me, dj@wmnf.org. Let's listen to what former First Lady Michelle Obama had to say. We'll listen to as much of her speech as possible here on Community Speaks. Keep it tuned.
Lives with him. He wakes up every day, and thinks about what's best for this country. Please welcome America's 44th president and the love of my life, Barack Obama.
Introducing her husband,
actually going to try to listen to
Obama and the embrace on stage.
Going to try to listen to some of Michelle's speech. I was hoping to hear Michelle's speech because, of course, that was one of the things she talked about. She brought up the whole black jobs thing, this attempt to constantly pit people against one another in this country. So let's listen to at least those comments.
It could be more obvious. Of the two major candidates in this race, only Kamala Harris truly understands the unseen labor and unwavering commitment that has always made America great. Now, unfortunately, we know what comes next. We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs? Look, it's his same old con. His same old con. Doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and solutions that will actually make people's lives better. Look, because cutting our health care, taking away our freedom to control our bodies, the freedom to become a mother through IVF like I did, those things are not going to improve the health outcomes of our wives, mothers, and daughters. Shutting down the Department of Education, banning our books, none of that will prepare our kids for the future. Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love, look, that doesn't make anybody's life better. Instead, it only makes us small. And let me tell you this, going small is never the answer. Going small is the opposite of what we teach our kids. Going small is petty, it's unhealthy, and quite frankly, it's unpresidential.
You are listening to some highlights from Democratic National Convention. Just wanted to play some dynamic speeches today. This is Community Speaks here on your non-commercial radio station, WMNF. Of course, up next, we're going to get back to the music as Blaney Whalen comes to you with It's the Music Monday. We're going to, of course, be on the lookout for, watching this campaign. The 2024 elections are upon us. We're going to continue to watch the campaign. But you can also write me, DJ at WMNF.org. One emailer has written about DJ Hughley's line. The only way he can keep her out of the White House, I guess 45 can keep Kamala Harris out of the White House, is by buying it and refusing to rent it to her. They said this emailer's favorite part of the convention was D.L. Hughley, and he's still laughing. It's possible we could play a little bit of D.L. Hughley if you want to hear it in the last 9-8 minutes of this program today. This is Community Speaks, and of course I want to hear from the community. I want to hear more from you, and as I said, you can write me, DJ at WMNF.org. We heard from the exonerated 5 earlier today, which was one of the most somber speeches at the convention, and it really just puts on display one of the worst proclivities of 45, and the fact that he's never apologized for that. One emailer has written about that, thanking me for playing that speech. The exonerated 5, I know that must have been important to your ears as well, because it's, those guys could have been executed. And especially when it was being campaigned with a full-page ad in the New York Times at a time people were very angry and confused about the rape in Central Park. And, back in those days, and still today, a lot of young people are prodded and probed during the when they're in police custody, and no adult and no lawyer is around, and they're lied to and told if you just admit this or that, you can go home, knowing they're not gonna go home. They're not gonna send those kids home, and those kids ended up being blamed for something they didn't do. It was an attempt at a miscarriage of justice, and is being perpetrated on our own local black rights activists, according to this emailer, who I think this is the one who spoke to us about the 3 who are going to go on trial September 3rd in the federal courthouse. So that's a very interesting trial, talking about the Uhuru 3. But, in my opinion, it's not the same thing. The Uhuru 3 does not face execution. The Uhuru 3 are going to put together a free speech case, but I don't really think it's about free speech. But I can't try the case beforehand. I want to hear what they have to say. But we're going to go and see what Jeanette has to say in St. Pete. Before I have to get on out, make room for It's the Music Monday. Go ahead, Jeanette. You say what?
Well, I just want to say that I can't imagine that there is any contest. In my mind, there's no contest as far as who should be president. And, Trump was the most reckless, dysfunctional person I've ever seen in office. He did nothing but destroy our environment. He's in the pocket of every oil company and the meat industry and every industry that turns around and screws over our workers and our land. And he doesn't care about anything except getting rich people richer. And those are the people who vote for him, or the people that are very ignorant vote for him and don't realize that we can have a total dictatorship here in this country if we reelect him. And he might never leave after 4 years. He might die, but there will always be the GOP in office, because there won't be fair elections ever again. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, unless, it might take the military to yank him out of that White House if they put him back in there.
If we have a military that's on our side, or that's on the people's side, I mean, it's just a scary, scary thought to even think about the GOP taking the White House again, being in the White House again. I can't imagine. I can't imagine that people have forgotten what it was like.
No.
The 4 years he was in there.
Yeah, and how he even contributed to the downfall of the economy in terms of inflation because he just had to have his war on, his tariff wars and all of that. And
well, I mean, he has divided the country worse than I've never seen the country be like this before. I mean, I lived in Florida for a long time, and it's just gotten horrible now. To be around people, it's just horrible. Nobody talks to each other. Nobody likes each other. It's like if you believe in one thing, then they hate you, and if you believe in something else, they hate you. I mean, I just feel like it's gotten crazy around here, and we've got DeSantis, who is another nightmare. Right. He doesn't care about the environment at all. Nobody's going to care about climate change if the GOP gets back in office. Nobody.
The third rail of politics in Florida used to be the environment, but as if they don't care anymore.
And, we all are upset right now about them trying to put golf courses and pickleball courses on in the
state parks,
national state parks. Yeah, I mean it's like unbelievable. Everybody's starting to hear about it and go, "Oh my God, what is this? So what, are we going to have a state of golf courses and kill all the animals?"
Wow. Well,
Except for the factory farms, we'll still have factory farms, that's for sure, but we won't have any environmental anything. We'll just have ranchers and killing and insanity and people with guns roaming around. I mean, I can't.
But I just can't believe those people are the majority, and I think that what Florida needs to show, maybe us citizens here in Florida, because they've nationalized these issues that we've seen DeSantis and now Rick Scott with his election denialism continuing. And with Mar-a-Lago here, this has become the epicenter of this MAGA movement, and we need to stand up against it. How can we as a state?
It's so horrible. I mean, you can't even have a civil conversation anymore with anyone.
Yeah.
And you can't even bring up anything that you believe in without having somebody freak out.
Yeah, even when you got the facts on your side, the science and the facts.
They don't care about facts. They care about their agenda.
And that's scary.
And I do want to say one thing about what you said about Israel. I mean, I really believe that in what Netanyahu is doing is horrible, but they need to get their hostages back. And I mean, I know that Netanyahu wants to continue this war because he doesn't want to lose his place in office, and the right-wingers that are doing all kinds of crazy stuff to make him keep this war going. But we also need to get the hostages back, and we need to have them stop bombing into Israel as well.
Right.
It's a two-sided deal. It's not a one-sided thing.
Right, and we have to factor all of that in.
And we have American hostages there, too, so we should be just as upset about what happened.
But that's my time, Jeanette. Thank you so much for calling.
You're welcome.
This has been Community Speaks. My name is Patrick Mobili, your host. Of course, stay tuned for updates from the Scoop, locally produced news from right here at WMNF. And then following that, we're going to get back to the music. Blandy Whalen is going to bring you It's the Music Monday. So keep it tuned right here, WMNF Tampa.
Your views, your values. This is WMNF Tampa 88.5 FM.
This is The Scoop for Monday.
I'm Megan Bowman with the WMNF News headlines. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection is delaying the public meetings it originally scheduled this week to discuss a new agency proposal for adding amenities like golf courses, lodging accommodations, and pickleball courts